All right, we are live again. And this Sunday, I think we'll talk about, uh, well, first of all, like I said, anytime I go live, you can ask questions. Somebody said, can I ask them questions now? And I said, fine. Uh, the whole idea of the chats was for Q&A, questions and answers. So that's an open thing on any of the live broadcasts. And also, the Battlefield Curator brought up a video. Uh, is collecting mill surplus. Let's see exactly. Done for. Okay. And like I said, coming to an end. And morning, Alan. Got to kind of look at it on how things are changing. There's a lot of things changing in all venues of our lives, no matter what. And collecting mill surplus guns was another one. It was somewhat of a specialized thing, and people have done it for many years. We look back in the 50s, actually the 30s, in the Depression era. That's when a lot of these more acclaimed collectors and people who ended up writing books started collecting Civil War uh, weapons. And, when I was younger, I never realized the extent of what happened during the American Civil War. We had numerous firearms in our inventory that were laying around. Uh, what's that? They are getting new shipments from Ethiopia. All right, we'll discuss that in a minute. But I didn't realize they had numerous guns that used to be smoothbore flintlocks or some older designs. They were all converted to percussions prior to the war. And the U.S. military was a lot different then. You had state militias, basically, for the states that were there. You have to remember, most of the West was still territories. Um, so a lot of this country was not incorporated into the United States at that point in time. So you had all this hodgepodge of guns from the Revolution up to some of the more modern, like the 1855. They started making rifled muskets. But there was a whole array of all these different odd variations and modifications. And then when the war did start, everyone realized that they don't have enough weapons as the war expanded. So they started buying anything and everything from all these foreign countries and Belgium. And so, truthfully, to have a collection of Civil War guns, you're talking about 50, 60 variations. Okay. It wasn't just, you had a standard U.S. musket, 1861 or 1864, and say like the 1855 uh, is just a basic northern issue, the Union issue. And, when you go to the Confederate States, there were places that produced rifled muskets. Actually, in Greensboro, North Carolina, one of the largest collections of Confederate firearms is there on display at the museum. And it was an individual that all he collected was Confederate built weapons. So the collection isn't huge, but there's some very rare stuff and a lot of things there that you didn't realize existed. And this gentleman wrote books back in the 50s and 60s and that. So it was a big collecting thing, okay? From the the 30s Depression era, that's where the guy that ran Dixie Gun Works, Turner Kirkland, became somewhat of an expert. He had an extensive collection of Civil War firearms, okay, which that gradually changed in the 50s. Um, it became very popular to collect Civil War era and the Old West, the Winchesters and all this other, the Colt single actions. That was a real hot collector's market. Okay, the World War II, the 40s, 50s started then, and you had guys like Ralph Shattuck. He was considered the top Luger expert, has written books. And I met him at the Syracuse Gun Show once when I was in high school, and I sat and talked to him a little bit. And he was a very nice man. You know, yes, Jay, I will get back. There was another thing I was going to bring up also. Uh, all right, Joel, take it easy. I mean, the weather is nice. It's gotten humid again. I'm starting to sweat. Uh, but yeah, collecting uh, came about like that. And it first was Civil War, then the West. It was very popular in the 50s. They had Civil War guns or guns from the Old West, some of the guns that were modified post Civil War when cartridge guns started to come out. And that was a big collecting area. Okay. And it's kind of like the mindset of the people here. I mean, that was a big thing. Like my grandfather, if there was a Western on, the old joke, when you see the old jokes, the old cartoons, that every time you turn the channel on the TV, there was a Western. Okay. This was super, super popular. Okay. And that sparked an interest in collecting. And actually, over the years, prices on Civil War guns got quite high. Okay. And, you know, it got to where when I started collecting, I wasn't interested in them because when I was younger, I was more interested in World War II, World War One stuff that I could go out and actually shoot. You know, you could find ammunition for it at the time. Okay, where the Civil War stuff, some of it, you know, black powder guns do um, deteriorate at a much uh, worse than smokeless powder weapons. Okay, if you see some black powder firearms, that especially percussion types that have been used a lot over the years, all of that, the nipple, the whole breech area and everything, it's actually worn away and thinned out. So to find examples that are in somewhat shootable condition started to become difficult in the late 50s because also Civil War reenacting started to become popular with the event of, I guess it was 1961 was a 100-year anniversary of the Civil War. And then 1976 was the bicentennial. So a lot of the revolutionary battles and going out and firing the muskets and being in uniform, that took off for a while. And that's when the Italians decided to use their firearm industry to make all these reproduction guns. Okay, and they pretty much had throughout the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s produced brand new versions of a whole assortment of Civil War firearms, including some Confederate ones and that. And, you know, early Colts, like I said, I had that Colt Patterson. That repro firearm, they sell for over $1,000 for a reproduction. Okay, granted, some of the models that were more complex and didn't make a lot of, generally you could buy back in the 80s a brass frame gun for $100 or less. Steel frame ones, they started to make them because a lot of the people used the brass. Eventually, the brass gun will shoot loose and not be worth the shit. So then you started getting them to make the Colt 1860s, different Colt models. I have a Spencers and Rogers gun. I remember I wanted one because they were made in Willowvale, which is outside of Utica, And down on Bag Square, that's why it says Utica, New York, Spencer Firearms. The sales office was in the old section of downtown Utica. It doesn't exist anymore. Um, so to me, and at the time when I was in high school, it would cost me well over $1,000 to get a decent example of an original one, and they didn't pop up that often. So for me to pay like 3.5 to get a new one is compared to excess of 1,000, which back in the '80s, $1,000 was a lot of money. Okay, um, and then I can go out and shoot it if it gets a little rusty or something or whatever, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. Granted, I have no idea. See, that's another thing. When you guys ask about gun prices, I have no idea what they go for now. And that includes even some of the mill surplus stuff I have in my collection because I'm not looking for it. And like the title says, everyone's saying, is mill surplus dead or going by the wayside because it is getting ridiculous in what the prices are. Okay. Let's see what we got here. What's the difference between black powder and the other bang powder? Okay, I don't understand what the hell that means. It means smokeless powder. Basically, black powder is a low-level explosive. That's why you can't find it. Okay, you need an explosive license to sell it. And it works on you compress it, you detonate it, and the explosion propels a lead ball. Smokeless powder works on a different principle. Black powder works on a mechanical principle. Smokeless powder works on a pressure. You seal the chamber with a brass case, you set off the smokeless powder. Smokeless powder burns at a certain rate. That's why there are so many different types of smokeless powder. Where black powder, the size of the granule, is the only difference. Okay. And smokeless powder produces pressure. The pressure of the burning powder pushes the projectile down the bore, which is smaller than the actual diameter of the bullet. And that burning gas pressure expels the bullet from the gun. Okay. That's the difference. Motorcycles. What's the difference? Good morning, Michigan. All right. Okay. Don't get into values. Okay. I'm not gonna get into that. Yeah, you could different uh, calibers if you want to do that. I have so many different calibers of some of them older guns, it's ridiculous. But anyway, going back to it, um, the collecting, that's how it all come about. And then you kind of gradually shifted to where the Italians were making up for the demand for these weapons, these Civil War weapons, and they still do to this day. I doubt that you will find many reenactors out there using original weapons. Some may, but it's not as prevalent as it was in the 1950s. Okay. Um, Most of the stuff that you see in museums or when you go to the forts, there was a fort in New York that they had a kid running around with a Civil War uniform on, firing a musket every now and again. And then when you do go to some of the Revolutionary War era reenactments or forts or museums, they have people dressed period clothing firing, usually a European made copy of a Brown Bess or some type of flintlock musket. Okay. And again, with this, um, and this is where when you guys ask about the current situation and prices with milsurp, let's look at this. And the reason I brought it up is because I remembered when, and still today, if you go and look at Winchesters or Colt single actions or any of the original Civil War era firearms, um, they were popular collectibles. People did collect them. Okay, that age group or era of people is somewhat dying out. Now, there's still interest. You can still sell them, but not as much because, like, all the guys that had them antique guns, be it old black powder guns or the Springfield trapdoors and stuff, they used to come to the shows. They don't anymore. Actually, this weekend there's the one military show in Albany where you will find that. Okay, and the military show is different because not only do you find the old antique firearms, but there'll be guys that only have swords. Okay, they used to come to some of the gun shows, but the people there are looking for ARs, 9 millimeters, and 12 gauge shotguns. They're not going to spend, you know, $600, $1,000 on a Civil War saber. Okay, it's a different group of people and what gun shows have become. Um, and you see the value. Now, say I started collecting that stuff. I remember when I got out of the service in the 80s, a Civil War saber, an original cavalry saber, in really nice shape with a scabbard, and that was worth about $600. Okay, that's like the max end of it. So you pick one up for 400 or 500 bucks, you're making a deal. Okay, let me get four. If you could only get one for collecting M1 Garand or M1 Carbine, I got one of each, so it don't matter. I mean, it depends what you got. They're both available, and the price tags on them are extremely high. What's your opinion on open carry? Hickok seems to be down on the concept. Well, in my state, you can open carry. I go to the flea market wearing a handgun on my side. A lot of people do. There's no restriction on it. And as long as you're not, I guess, in a public place or a school or church or something, um, unless you go to a business that, you know, they have no firearms on the wall, open carry would be kind of a difficult thing to do. Depends what you're doing. Now, if I leave today and go to the post office and stop the American Legion, you really can't do that carrying a handgun on your side. Okay, you know they're not going to allow that. Okay, uh, so you know open carry. The only thing is, I've seen a couple videos where somebody had open carry. A guy was in a convenience store, just standing there, and some guy come up behind him, just reached over, snapped the thing on his holster, yanked the gun out, ran out of the store, stole his gun from him. You know, and again, it's like concealed carry. You know, do you warrant having this weapon on you? I kind of don't. Like when I leave the house today, I'm not going to holster, conceal carry, or put a small gun in my pocket because uh, the chances of me running into any type of an incident where I'd have to defend myself are just about zero. Okay. Uh, I know that's not the case depending on where you live and where you were going. Okay. But open carry, eh. History is 6-point developed. Okay, 6.5, the reason militaries adopted them is it's just like I said. We started off the Revolutionary War where you were lobbing a 3/4 inch round lead ball, and then it got smaller. And then when it got to rifled muskets, it was a 58 caliber, 54 caliber. And then when you got into cartridge guns, it started going down to a 45, 43. There's a reason for this, and it's not just coincidence. What it is as you change the type of weapon, the ballistics, that's why all those guns are very similar caliber or similar size bullet, okay? Is because what they were using, the black powder and the type of guns, the trajectory and the ballistics turn out that way. And as they got smaller, they went from the 40 calibers to the 8mm, okay? Which is a little over 300 thousandths. And they went to the 8mm, some went to 30 caliber, okay, and they were getting ballistic performance, and they all went with torpedo bullets, and they all changed to Spencer bullets. Well, the 6.5s always have been smaller, lighter bullet, more accurate, flat trajectory, really great ballistics, and that. And plus, the concept was, and why a lot of militaries adopted them, like the Italians and that, they weren't that brutally recoiling. The ammunition was lighter, and you can shoot them fairly more accurately, okay, because of the lighter weight, the lighter recoil. And ballistically, look at what some of the most popular, most accurate cartridges are 6.5 Creedmoor, and then they went to the 6mm Creedmoor. You go look at what your bench rest shooters are shooting. Okay, that's what it comes down to. All right, that's why 6.5s. They were the reason I think they were eliminated is they probably don't do well in a machine gun for supporting fire. Okay, that's why if you look, the reason the 30-06, the 8mm Mauser, and that is their machine guns still use them. Granted, in the Russian military or the Soviet bloc, they still use the 7.62 by 59 in most of the machine guns, but they went with the AK and the smaller bullet. That's the way it goes. I don't have any US 1911s. I've always had a civilian copy because the prices of them and the condition of them when you did find them were there. I have two TIAS 1911 mil types, one in 45 and one in 9mm. And at $300 a piece or $340, I've seen some of them drop to $290 something. It's just like the damn gun I was issued in the military, and it functions the same sights. For me to go well over $1,000 or something for a rehashed military gun, okay, and then the prices again, 1911s. I've seen some insane prices on them, okay. I was issued one in the service, and I fired M14s in the service. I have a copy of an M14, but it's kind of like, you see, when you look, my collection, some things I've had, I have an M1 Garand, I have an M1 Carbine, Springfield 03A3, and 3040 Craigs, and a whole bunch of trapdoors. So I have a bunch of U.S. weapons. Carson, if you are conducting open carry, Yeah, the Germans had shotguns. Don't let them lie to you. All right, 314s here. Yes. So, like I said, as collecting old surplus guns changed over the years, also in the 50s is when the United States Army dumped all these Springfield trapdoors out into the market. Okay. So, a lot of those firearms from that time period were disposed of by the U.S. government. I believe at one time you could see old ads in the American Rifleman where the U.S. government was selling rifled muskets, 1861s or 1864s. Okay, and for the longest time, they sold the U.S. Craig rifles. Now, the U.S. Craig rifles, if you took a gunsmithing course back in the 50s or 60s, a lot of the projects and a lot of the things you would do is go find a like new condition, a mint condition military rifle. And your project, or how you would learn the skills of the gunsmithing, would be to sporterize and customize this weapon. Okay. Be it with Mausers or whatever. And that's where a lot of your military surplus guns in excellent condition were bought for that reason because they were inexpensive and you got to practice. You took the wood off, you took the sights off. Okay, you go and reblue it. There was bending the bolt handle down. You drill and tap the receivers out to mount a scope. Bend the bolt handle down. I even know how that was. I know how it was done. My grandfather has. I got my grandfather's Mauser that he had converted, and they put a new stock on there, or mount. He had the Williams receiver sight mounted on there. And so you'd have to drill and tap it for that and mount that, refinish it. And that was a common project. And because I talked to a man that did that, and he said, yeah, the reason we did the 3040 Craig is you go find a decent gun and it was cheap. Okay. And he goes, you'd convert them and then you would make, you'd sporterize them. Now, sporterizing a bolt action gun is a lot easier than you don't see a lot of sporterized M1 Garands or M1 carbines because the design of the weapon, other than mounting the scope on it, it's about the only sporterization you can get. Well, publishing a book on the 6.5 Carcano is awful. There's not an awful lot of it there. Doesn't really matter, pairing the M1 Garand and 308 versus 30-06. If you had one actually made, see, to make them correctly in 308, you have to shorten the receiver. Ten-shot Browning, yeah, 10-shot Browning pistol or what? All right. pushed in from the top down. Push down. It's not, okay, that's not a Browning. Okay, and it's not a U.S. gun. You know, what he's describing is an Austrian gun. It's either a there's two or three. The Austrian guns did that. Yeah, I know they had a bridge spacer installed, but I said to properly do it, you would have to shorten the weapon. Okay, the bridge spacer and then that stupid chamber thing, because the Navy was issued those, didn't quite work well, and that's why you don't see, they never really converted the Garands into the 308. Okay. He called it a Browning. Well, I have no idea. 10 shots that get shoved down is either a broom handle, a Steyr, and the only other one I think were the Bergman pistols. There were a few guns that they did there, but I think the Bergmans had a clip. So, yeah, Browning. I can't remember a Browning pistol having that in there. And let me see. No, it's not a Browning high power. That's an Austrian gun. All right, so getting back, there's several things. All right. So what's the best lower cost shotgun so far? Oh, the Titan works fine. The other ones I gotta test them a little. But that one works all right. The pump should work. It kind of does, but it drags on. The reason that lifter won't come down, it drags on the spring-loaded thing in the side of the receiver that controls when you rack it back. There's a spring-loaded mechanism there. One shell comes out and it pops back and catches the other shell. For some reason, it's binding against that. Why, I don't know. But the pump should work fine, but it kind of doesn't. That Titan works fine. The AR style guns, they're okay. I didn't really run a shitload of 3-inch Magnum in them, but that bullpup is just a nightmare. I have to get out and finish testing them here in the next few weeks and move on to something else. But I don't know if FN 1922. Yeah, and so like I said, as collecting shifted, you'll see this, okay? And like, Civil War guns were going for a ton of money. Now they're a hard sell. Okay, it's hard to sell that stuff to anyone because it's really not that popular of a collector's item anymore. It's not the genre. I guess World War One with the 100-year anniversary, and again, like a lot of people said, there are these video games where a lot of the younger people are into it, and you get to pick the weapons, and it's kind of like that's how they figure out or learn the history, the caliber, and I guess you actually fire them in the game. So you're like in a simulator with the weapons, which is a little different. I didn't have that when I was a teenager. I had to actually go buy the gun, buy some ammo, and go shoot the damn thing. Oh, it is getting hot. Sorry for the sweat. I guess drinking hot iced coffee doesn't help either. Yeah, so you see as the market's changed. Now in the 80s, like the one guy said, that's when all the Europeans, and because of the political climate and the economy, they dumped their surplus bolt action rifles out on the market. It was a free for all. It was a great time. It was a great time to get them. Now, the only problem is they're gone. And now, ever since World War II, just about every military, okay, from the 50s, 60s on, every military has upgraded to a rifle that is selective fire. So this is not going to be released to surplus because of the laws. You're not going to have selective fire weapons released. They have made legal semi-automatic copies of these weapons, the manufacturers, so you can have them as a collector and shoot them. But as per se of finding them in quantities of the thousands cheap, no. So the military weapons have changed, and the type of weapons that are easily available and legal for us to own, the old style, are no longer being used. The only thing that you do find in surplus now is mostly handguns, because handguns do not fall into the same category as machine guns, or like the M4 M16 carbine has a 14-inch barrel. So even if you had an upper receiver and put it on a legal semi-automatic lower, it's still a short barrel rifle. So a lot of the rifles fielded by everyone in the world, okay, cannot kind of legally be owned, at least in the U.S. And most of the world also has banned private ownership of guns and can't be owned there. So henceforth, the surplus market is available to us as civilians. There probably still is a surplus market, and you can go buy rockets and all kinds of great stuff if you were qualified to do that. Okay, so that's where you're going to see less and less, and basically the only things that do pop up are handguns. Now, recently there has been several. The Portuguese Mausers was a shock to me. They were all over. You still are getting Swiss rifles filtering in here and there. Royal Tiger had them, and someone goes, "Oh well, Royal Tiger got another supply of guns." Well, yeah, I mean they went there, got through the political negotiations, another third world hellhole country where all these guns have been piled up with, they had a picture of a goat taking a crap on a pile of rifles or whatever. And unfortunately, that's probably the largest cache of very old weapons you'll find, and the condition isn't that good. But you ain't got nothing else. You're not going to go to Europe and find them 1888, 90 rifles anywhere. You're not going to, I don't think, find any more of those Betterleys, be it the 10 mils or the conversions. A lot of the Carcanos they got out of there were pretty dogged out. Okay, and then the Highway Patrol released all their carbines, So yeah, you're still finding some stuff there, but the quality and the price point, Royal Tiger stuff is priced way the hell too high for the condition it's in. You could find old JC Siggin. Yes, but a J.C. Higgins shotgun does not take a 25 round drum magazine, Carson. And that's, see, these guns fit into a certain niche, okay? I would readily take for home defense my old H70 or Mossberg 500 before I would buy any of those guns, okay? These guns, practicality, there's certain people that go crazy over these things and want them, okay? uh, it's a different subcategory. Yes, I could go buy an old pump shotgun or something for about the same money, maybe not. And about firearms, can't read that. Here in Canada, golden age. Yeah, 89, that's the years. -12-year-olds, 1980. Took on, yeah, hunter's training. Okay. It was true if you lived in an area where hunting was popular. $50 Mosins. Yeah, I remember seeing them. They're pretty rusted. M40s. 43 mini shells. Yeah, so it's changing, and what the price is like. When you guys, well, what's the price? I don't keep up with it anymore, and it was Megabait that told me that a Chinese SKS is like $800. The few Russian ones that come in are $1,400. They ask for them, and all this other stuff. Okay, I don't follow it. I don't keep up with it, so I'm out of touch with all of that stuff in terms of prices and that. But somebody did mention at the beginning of the chat they're making the MP 44s or 45s. They're making an exact copy. There was that company in Germany that made a MP40 pistol. And it was kind of exact replica, with all the features to make it semi-automatic only. And you could get a stock and have it registered as a short barrel rifle. They also made, I'm going to call it an MP44 or STG 45, whatever you want to call it, in the original 8mm Kurtz, which PPU made ammo for. Now, PSA was supposed to make a similar thing that you could change the calibers and have it in 308 blackout, 7.62 by 39, and 8mm Kurtz. So that was a thing, but I just seen, what's the name of the channel? Gun Review or whatever. I was just watching the damn thing this morning. Let me look. Back home. Go to history. Where the hell is that? You. No, it's my channel. Oh, what is the name of that channel? I watch it all the time. I'm getting old. I don't have history here. What is that? Let me close that out. Close that out. Boom. Open this up. Ah, there it is. History. Military Arms Channel. The Military Arms Channel, they cover a lot of newer stuff or older stuff. And he was talking about those guns. I guess this company has moved from Germany to Kentucky, and they're going to produce an exact replica, I guess, of these World War II guns. And the price tag, they were 4,500 or something for the ones, the 200 that made it into the country. And he said at auction they go for excess 10 grand. And now they're available, they're made here, they'll ship them here, $6,000. Okay, 6,000. All right, compared to if you go to Atlantic Firearms in most places, it's well over $1,000 for any variation of the AK-47, which is a little bit crazy to me. FNs are 1,700 in that, and that's about, FNs were always expensive. I mean, the FN FAL copies. I guess DPMS or something is the only place that's making them. They have several variations. And then anyone making a copy of the H&K G3, I guess the PT 91 or the 91 or whatever they call it, those run about $1 grand for an old HK copy. So a lot of these civilian models of these classic military rifles are extremely expensive. I just can't go fill the safe up with, say, 4 or 5 of them, being, somewhere up to $9 grand. I just can't do it. I don't have the money for that. 3-inch mags. KSG25. It's got to be a variation. But I don't know when prices will drop. Okay, SKS. Would you get? Tim at Military Arms Channel. Yes. Yeah, I mean, the price tag on it, $6,000. I mean, it's a cool gun. It's an exact replica, except it's semi-automatic. Okay, but for $6 grand, and finding the ammo's high. Getting it straight up is $2 a round. 20-cent candy bars, yeah. 9-hole reviews. Okay. Yeah, you can find some at 800 or 600 AK-47s if you shop around. But I said most of the ones I was seeing, are the ones that pop up in the ads on the email. Are that? Yeah, I had an HK91 too. Fortunately, I had to sell it when I moved. Sold it for twice as much as what I paid for it, but I kicked myself in the ass. But it was unfortunate. It was one of my favorite guns. I love that gun. prices will drop when people stop buying and demand falls. Maybe for older weapons, but what happens is when demand falls, more than likely they will stop manufacturing, much like powder and stuff. Okay. But I don't see a shortage in the demand. Yeah, Schmidt Rubens are cool, and you were getting ammo for it. You can get it from I think PPU, and it's not that difficult to reload. I mean, it's just like reloading a 308 or something. You get the dies, the brass, and you just load it. Uh, but then again, well, I said it's not difficult to reload. It's difficult finding the components to reload anything. Okay, not so much uh, the skill needed to reload it. But yeah, it's the way it's gone down. I think do I think the prices will drop? Probably, as far as I'm concerned, I'm somewhat out of the game unless I go to an auction and find something unusual like I have. You find some gun, nobody knows what the hell it is, and you can pick it up for a reasonable price. But much like I always wanted to get a Browning 1922, but now if anyone sees one, they brought a bunch of surplus ones in. You used to see them a few years back. They weren't real real good shape. They wanted $400 for them. Now, if you get a nice one, like I seen this one from a guy's estate auction, a real nice older one with bluing and stuff on, and of course Nazi marked. And the minute they say that, the damn price goes upwards of $600 or something. And I kind of don't want to really get into it. Uh, Dropping it, and it depends on what it is. Like I said, at one time, buying Civil War stuff, or even now, Winchester. You go and look at some of these auctions on Winchester rifles and that, because I think the cowboy action shooting kind of got it up. So that's one level ratcheted up from the black powder era of the Civil War to where you have cartridge guns. And that cowboy action shooting has brought back the popularity of those firearms from that time period, would be post Civil War in that. And Winchesters, Colts, and pistols and all that are extremely popular. And, so there are venues and people like that, people that are into that probably won't be buying Schmidt Rubens or Mausers or anything like that. Okay. That's the thing. You have to understand the firearms interest, collectors, shooters. There are so many variations and niches and special groups that it's kind of hard to say. And if you're talking about old military rifles, seeing the price drop, I doubt that. There are a bunch of newer, younger collectors out there eager to get in. But see, another thing is there's some people on YouTube. Any of these guns this guy's reviewing, uh, they're all well over $1,000. Okay. Um, you won't see me going to a gun show and buying a really nice M1 Garand for $1,500 and doing a video on it. I just ain't gonna do it. I bought one years ago and I still have it in its good shape. Uh, but people do buy these guns and they pay that price. Okay, so for me to see a lack of demand, I doubt that will happen anytime soon. Um, Especially when you're talking about guns that ammunition is still made for. okay, that can be easily and readily gotten. I mean, the 3040 Craig, for some reason, they stopped making ammo, to brass, everything. And there was a period of time where they went nuts. It's not a super popular caliber. Remington made the ammo and the brass for years. But all of a sudden, one day, I had a couple of these and say, hey, I'm going to go reload, make a video reloading for it. And I go, look, there's no brass. People are paying $1 or more for a once fired piece of brass because it wasn't being manufactured, and it gets put on this weird list like 32 short or the 32 uh, Smith and Wesson for the little lemon squeezers, a little tiny cartridge. Remington will make it like once every 3 years. They'll make a run, and when you found it, the one time I found it was years ago. It was almost $40 a box for the ammo. It was good ammo, worked well. I fired it, and all them little guns I had, they were calibered in it. But most people buy one of these old Iver Johnsons for $50, and when you're telling them that to get 50 rounds of ammo, they're thinking it's 1970. You're going to get it for $8 a box, and you tell them, it's upwards to 40. They or 25 automatic. A lot of people, I didn't even have it. I mean, they're out there. Those guns are out there, but the ammunition, I think one woman picked up a 25 automatic, and it was like $50. It was $1 a round when you could find it. $50 for a box, and I had like half a box or something. She was a friend of mine. I just said, just take it. I ain't gonna charge you $25. So I don't know. In 10 years for deer hunting, mule deer, they bounce and they run. Oh my God, for deer season. Well, inflation too, yeah. When money gets real again, it's hard to say. Like I said, there are people out there making videos and buying these guns that are quite expensive where I can't do that anymore. That's why I'm working with these discount guns. I can afford to play with those, and then dispose of them. I mean, it's not like I'm buying a $6,000 weapon and then make some videos and then try to dispose of that. It ain't gonna happen that easy. American Reloading. I've never heard of American Reloading. Okay. I heard of Reloader's Choice or something. That's a foreign powder. But yeah, that one I think I've gotten your email. That email is still active. Okay, you can use that if you want. Uh, I just had to tell people to stop because I was getting all kinds of insane requests for making parts. Some guy had an old rifle that had half the parts missing, and I can make a firing pin or a screw or something maybe, but I can't make you a breech block, a hammer, and mainspring, especially for a gun that's 130 years old. What are the dimensions? Like someone come and told me, I want you to make me a part for this old gun. I said, okay, do you know what size is? Well, no, it's a tube. Measure the tube and just make this. I said, I ain't gonna do that. Okay. So, yeah, gas prices, goods prices up. Uh, restrictions. It's fun to load 25 auto. Yep. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, collecting the way it goes, it's like collecting anything. People used to collect sports cards, people stamps, coins, whatever. Uh, them areas are dead. And it used to be a good investment. I mean, years ago, a lot of wealthy people collected coins and a lot of wealthy individuals collected stamps. Okay. From the 1980s until 2022, a guy did a study where they've lost 85% of their value. So if you had back in the 70s or early 80s, say you had a stamp collection, it was worth 5 grand or more, which depending on what you collected, that could very well be. You lost 85% of the friggin' value. I remember the Mermail Zeppelin stamps used to be 100 and a quarter, 100 and a half unused. I don't even want to know what the hell they are now. Okay, 85%. So you never know. Okay. But the thing is, the popularity of the military firearms, as long as it stays popular, the price isn't going to come down. As long as people seek to buy them, you could say, well, I'm not going to pay these inflated prices. Well, obviously, somebody does. Okay. People do pay. Like I said, that guy, I think he paid $1,500 for that Grand. Okay. Uh, I mean, it was a nice, he let me look at it. It was a very nice original military piece. But, and then nobody wants the rebuilt ones that one company makes. And they give you one that you could go compete and shoot in the military matches for around $1,000 or so. And I forget, I think the Israelis started producing M1 Grands at one point in time. There was a couple companies, there were a few times, I guess they must have had the old tooling and stuff, that started making brand new rifles. There was a couple startups that did that years ago, and I think back in the 80s, and I think at one point in time the Israelis started making them and were importing them into the country. So I don't know. Sold my 1963 stamp collection. Hillary stamps. Yeah. So, don't know. Have to see. See, the weather got good. We opened all the windows and the AC ain't been running. So if you're in a room in a house, even though you're sitting where the windows are open, I'm dying in here, the humidity. Yeah, 125 and 2000. They don't sell for that here. Okay, maybe if I went to an auction where nobody knew what the hell a damn gun was, they go for an excess of $400 whenever you can find them. Yeah, or something. But I do remember the Israelis did manufacture them. Yeah, but as prices coming down, it's you know, to me, what I should do is start thinning my collection while prices are high. Instead of trying to acquire more stuff. I was looking into the CZ82s, the military version. A friend of mine, a guy I work with, bought one. And I guess he had a problem. The spring for the slide stop was broke. So I had to look into it. But still, by the time, even if you got them for under three with the shipping, the tax, and then transfer fees, it's upwards to about a $400 gun, and those are the ones that got spots and stuff. They're not the real nice ones. I should have bought one years and years ago, 15 years ago, when they were all coming in with the holsters and the spare mag, and they were all pretty nice, and they weren't that much money. I don't kind of don't remember why the hell I just didn't jump up and get one. You know, you kind of kick yourself in the ass. But somebody did, a subscriber, he had one or he bought two, and he was just trying to get his money out of it. He had a holster and a spare mag and that. But the gun had some blemishes in the finish. And generally, that makes it a tough sell. I'll move my uncle's baseball. Yeah, I don't know. Me and my brother had shoe boxes of that crap, tops or whatever. And after I got out of the service, that crap was all gone. But a lot of the guys that collect theirs, I work with a guy that collects them, said that that stuff is basically worthless because they made thousands of them. And, I have no idea about sports cars. But I do remember in the late 80s and the 90s, it was an extremely popular thing. And there were shops that had huge shelves full of this. And people would come in and sit there at a table and take these cards out and flip through them and throw one off to the side, put them back. It was another form of collecting. Yeah, I mean, stamps. The reason I got into it is because I traded them on eBay. When eBay was a new thing, I guess they sent me uh, an email this year that I've been a member for 26 years. So 26 years ago, I used to do that when I lived up north in the winter and try to make some extra money. I would go to auctions and buy huge things of stamps, take out the ones I wanted for my collection, collecting worldwide stamps, which is insane. And then I'd go and make little packets of the leftovers and sell them on eBay. And what's neat about them is you can put 3, 5, $10 worth of stamps in a little bitty envelope, wrap it up in a sheet of paper, and that was your shipping and handling. Okay, it wasn't like sending a gun or sending coins or any other knickknacks, rings, knives, whatever. Okay, and I actually did mail things all over the world: South Africa, Europe, South America, Japan. I think some older woman I knew had a weird collection of these first aid covers that I don't know how she got them, but she just had them. They were in binders. They were like in, I don't know, 5 or 6 binders on a shelf. She wanted to sell them. And I put them on eBay, and actually, a guy from Greece, a coin shop somewhere in Greece, bought them from me, and he like paid me $80 for all the binders, and he had to pay $75 for me to pack it up and ship it to him. It's the cheapest way to do it. Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was pretty neat. I had a post office box and all this other shit, so all these requests and that. And that was for electronic payments. So I was going to the bank with checks and money orders and whatever, you know. A shitload of fun. I did that for years. Actually, that's back when computers back in the 90s, work from home, you wanted to get some sort of racket to make a little extra money. And what's neat is if you can sell the stuff online and ship it, you don't have to travel, you don't have to set up a table, you don't have like going to a flea market, a gun show, or a craft sale, or coin show, or I think they actually had coin and stamp shows. Okay, at one time, I know the coin shows. When I've been fooling around with the metals, I do watch some of them channels. There, Trump silver bars, but I do know they have some big coin shows here and there. They used to have them locally. I haven't seen one locally. I think down by Fayetteville, and I forget where else, but I haven't seen them advertised much either. Uh, the Legion told me years ago they used to have them. They'd rent the hall out, and they'd had a small coin show locally upstairs. But that's something I haven't seen much either. And you would find at the gun show, you would find coin dealers there, or people with coins or whatever, paper money, things like that. Uh, I did see that at gun shows every now and again. Now you kind of really don't see it. I don't think their sales are that good at coin shows. Yeah, cards on eBay are booming. Shortage in the 70s. All right, Alan, take it easy. But yeah, that's when the big cars, I forget what the hell, they get like 8 miles to the gallon. Uh, but yeah, people got rid of them, and that's when Toyota, that oil crash. That's when Toyota's got a foothold. Any of them foreign cars, uh, people went crazy for them. I think even the Yugos. I forget when the hell the Yugos came in. There was another one. They didn't last too long, but yeah. So, like I said, don't know. Don't know where it's going. The thing is, like they say, supply and demand. So your supply is evaporating, okay, with surplus guns. And like I explained, the weapons being used now are not going to be sold as surplus because they're all selective fire or compact or small. So the days of getting these older pieces out are gone. Okay, that's gone. So that's a huge factor. Okay, number one. All right. They're still making coins, they're still making trading cards. Okay. They're not making old military surplus bolt action rifles no more. So you have that factor. And if we look at the Civil War collectors and people, I can't say the area after that that's still highly active, the old Winchesters and Guns of the West type of thing. It still has a very popular following, and the Italians do make a whole bunch of modern copies of these firearms for competition and for people that actively shoot them in the older calibers also. But the desirability and getting people paid a long yard for them, I don't know if you really got a lot of collectors. Not as many. Not as many as mill surplus collectors, put it to you that way. And then you got to look at the size of the group. Okay. It used to be most people looked at the old mill surplus rifles as a gunsmithing project. they didn't really collect them. German stuff people did collect. Okay, that's another thing. Any Nazi stuff is highly more desirable than any of the Japanese stuff. Because I remember a time when there were very few people who collected Japanese weapons. They did, but not to the extent and to the demand that you got the German stuff. Okay. Um, you always wanted to find a mum on your Jap rifle. And I remember a time where I could buy them, and I'm talking the early ones that could take the bipod, the folding wings on the sight, and all that stuff. They were $10 a piece. Okay, and they were, and you could not, other than buying normal ammo. So I buy the gun for $10, but a box of ammo cost me 20 at the time. So I had a whole pile of them. I never fired them until recently, and actually, they're pretty good shooting guns. If you can, reload the brass and load the ammo, they're a damn good shooting rifle. Have bazaars anymore. The old days, the government wanted civilians. But yeah, a gun show promoter, that's a business. What happens is whoever promotes any of these shows will go to the location, be it a hall or state fairgrounds. They had a grocery store chain went out, and there was somebody going around. They would rent out the empty grocery store. It was just a huge friggin' room. The promoter will go and make the arrangements and say, okay, I want to rent your building for this date, pay all this stuff. He pays the fee. And then, when you're paying him per table, he gets the money to pay the rent and utilities or whatever. And then whatever's left over, I guess he profits. That's his profit is from it. And the reason with the fluctuation, it doesn't matter. Guns, ammo, it's the same thing. Right now, we're in a weird thing. If, like I said last week, if you're buying new commercial guns, now's the time to get a handgun or something. There's a lot of models for whatever reason. Everyone's looking for certain type of sights or something. So maybe they got an excess of one model that doesn't have these features what are popular. And they just sell these guns at a discounted rate or just a clearance to get rid of them. So there's a lot of buys out there, and there was a lot of guys selling ammo. I don't think ammo is going to go any lower than it is now. Okay, and I mean some of these they're cutting the price and this and that, and it just because it's not selling. The economy is not good. People don't have that extra disposable income, and we don't have unrest like we did prior to the other election, where that drove a panic and people went absolutely berserk and bought every damn firearm available and every last round of ammunition. Okay, we're not seeing that. So it's hard to say. I mean, this is current events. When I get that question, like the guy said, what do you see in 10 years from now with the mill surplus? That's a tough call because, number one, like I said, they're not making anymore. And if they do find any type of stuff that's been in storage or passed up, it's like Royal Tiger's been laying out in the middle of nowhere, and this stuff's in pretty rugged shape. Okay. Now, the fact that Royal Tiger continuously sells these guns, why? That means that the market is so tight and the demand is there. There are a lot of people that ask me about these guns, ask questions about these guns and all this other stuff, and they still buy them. Like the rear sights are busted off, okay, or torn off. All right, you're not gonna find a replacement sight, especially when they've had, say, a lot of them with sight missing. Anyone who has that sight as a spare part or something, it can be sold out immediately, and they're not in existence. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I can't tell you what to feel. I can't tell you by the end of the year what's going to happen with anything. Nevertheless, 10 years from now, okay, okay, you're going to have younger people interested in these older guns, and there is an interest. I've heard that there are younger people very interested in these old military firearms, and they are still legal to own. A bolt action rifle, I don't think, is ever going to get banned one way or the other. See, this is another thing. These are not AR-15s or stuff with detachable magazines. These are guns that kind of universally are not restricted uh, by most places. In 10 years, there won't be surplus left. Collections and private market for exorbitant prices. Okay, that's what Peter thinks. Show me that makes the piece. Yeah, so like I said, that was it's a tough one to answer, but the hobby is getting tough. I mean, if you really spend the time, how I used to acquire things, you had to spend the time. You had to travel to auctions, to gun shows. Now it's online auctions. I can sit here in front of this computer and I can go to numerous auctions throughout this country. Okay, and you never know what'll pop up. I found some interesting things pop up in these little rinky dink auctions that only got like 200 items, to where you go with like Rock Island, where it's a 3-4 day event with 15,000 items or whatever. Uh, so, you never know. Okay. Then you have to stay on top of all these different websites sending you these emails. I get 100 emails a day. AIM Surplus may come up with some small batch of surplus pistols or rifles, and not a bad price. Okay. It's like that one Yugoslav, that the M70 and 380. The old Western Scrounge had them, a batch of them. And I immediately, the day I got the damn email, I got on the phone. They had my FFL there. I made the arrangements and I bought one. Okay. Because once they were sold out, I don't think anyone has offered them in the 380. The 32s, you can still find them, but you can't find them. 380s are rare. Okay. So that's just the way it is. If you work at it, if you got the drive, the money, and the time, you can get deals, and you can go on with your collection. But you're going to spend a lot of your personal time doing it, correctly. And it is time consuming, but if you really like to collect like I did, it's rewarding. You end up with some nice pieces that are hard to find, and I didn't, spend $2,000 to get them. You know what I mean? Right. There are different types of collectors, in different fields, different types of weapons. And like I said, there are some that are more popular. Like somebody was asking me about these shotguns. And the guy said, well, Mike, you could go get a used J.C. Higgins or something, which were Mossbergs with a department store name on them, for really inexpensive price and this and that. But well, that's not why I'm making the video. Okay, I know that. It's practical common sense. The video is made for content. These are a very popular gun. They're on sale now. And, you know, I have gotten more activity on my channel reviewing these shotguns. Okay. And more activity on my channel, it's better for me to keep the channel going. Okay. That's why I do it. Actually, this week I had a bunch of things to do. I'm tired of shit, but I'm going to go and review all this Brand X shotgun ammunition. I bought this stuff. I've never even heard of these companies. And the weird thing is, some of these shells work fine in one gun. You put them in another one, and then they misfeed, double feed, whatever. You know, I don't know. Okay, so it's very strange. And it's just the ins and outs of it. And see, that's why you get somebody who watches the video, sees the guy take this model gun, go shoot it a little bit, then they go take it out, buy this Brand X ammo, which just the quality of the plastic hulls are really chintzy on some of them. Some of the Fioshi, you can see, you can take your finger and misshapen the damn shell. So what do you think that's going to do in a semi-auto coming out of a 25 round drum? All right. Yeah. Okay. LGS for 350. Yeah, Steyr M95 is about $400 is the going rate now. 350 is probably what they go for. I mean, when they had truckloads of them, they're $50, $60 a piece. But you know, two people recently. Oh, it's like anything. Okay, you get somebody who wants to drop 500 guns. You got a guy big enough to show up, cut him a deal, and offer. But a lot of these dealers, I forget what they had. The one guy in Florida, my buddy bought a gun from him. You got to do something, get on his mailing list, and he'll buy a collection of milsurp guns, and he emails certain people the list. And he bought a Swedish M98 or whatever, the Swedish bolt action rifle, and he got it. It's in excellent condition. I forget what he paid for it. He didn't pay too much for it. He paid over $400, a little over $400 for it, which probably isn't that bad. And this is going back a couple of years too. This ain't recent, all right. But he got this gun. He wanted this gun, and he got it. And the price wasn't terrible at the time. Like I said, I have no idea what something like that goes for. Okay. Uh, so yeah, they have different ways of doing it. The Mosin crate's another one. He gets some decent stuff in. His prices ain't actually bargain basement prices, but he gets some stuff that you don't actually find that often. And his thing where you got to send an email right at 10 o'clock on that day and all this other stuff, that's his gimmick. That works for him. I've gotten 2 or 3 things from him. Of course, I wasn't working at the time, and I can sit by the computer and wait for my little clock to go bing and then hit. And, that's the way he does it. That's his thing. And he isn't a bad person to deal with, but it's just a different way of doing business. Like these auctions, a lot of these auctions are a jerk off session and drive you nuts screwing with them. Yeah, Craig rifles. What's the best warehouse type place to buy ammo? Joe, what you do is you go to Ammo Seek, and Ammo Seek lists most of them, not all. And if they have sales, what you do is you scour that and you find where they got a sale, and you find a place, buying cases. Most of them, if you go over $200, shipping's free. But then if you're buying like just a few boxes on sale, they're going to burn you about $15-20 for shipping. You got to be careful. But Ammo Seek is one way. SG Ammo, I found his prices ain't like the lowest, but it's a good place. I bought a lot of ammo from them. They're a really great company to work with. And I bought bulk ammo from uh, several different places. And it doesn't really matter. Sometimes you just find a company that has a sale. You have to look around. There is no, I just go and do this one place. No, I don't have an answer for that because it varies. And these guys will drive you nuts. Like they'll have one type of ammo on sale, but you have to be charging you more than if you bought the other type of ammo, be it 9mm or something at the other place. It'd be like, yeah, go to Ammo Seek, or when you go to these places, get an email box like I got mine that you get 800 emails a day, and they will send you flyers and notices when they got sales. And that's the best way to buy it. That's how I buy it. There is no, I just go here and it's the best. No, don't work that way. Don't work that way. Because it's like reloading supplies. Grafts and Sons is the one I go to. Their price is not the lowest, but they're usually well stocked and they get stuck to you. I found deals on other reloading sites. I forget what they are. And you keep up like with Powder Valley or this and that. You get their email flyers, and when they have sales on either components or reloading equipment, you get an email flyer, and that's what it is. You got to shop around. It's not that easy. Oh, well, I got to go grab a shower and change. See about getting my air conditioning back on. And I'm going to pack it up, and I will see you guys next Sunday, 10 o'clock. Take it easy.